Simplifying trigonometric identities. So 2 points to remember. The first one, we want to try and rewrite in terms of sine and cosine. Also, if we have a division, we want to change it to a multiplication. So we're going to look at that. So our first example, we need to simplify sine theta cosecant theta divided by cotangent. So we're going to leave sine theta as it is. Now we can look at cosecant, and we know cosecant, so cosecant is equal to, so that's cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over sine theta. Now they're squared, so we're going to square them. No, they're not squared, so we won't square them. So sine theta, and this is going to be multiplied by 1 over sine theta. And we can replace cotangent theta with 1 over tan theta. So we're going to replace. Okay, so this is going to be 1 over tan theta. Now when we do this, we'll notice that we can actually simplify. So that's what we're looking to do. Simplify what terms we can. So these cancel out. And now what I can do is multiply, because I've got a division, so I'm going to multiply both by tan. Now these will simplify. So on the bottom I've just got 1, and on the top, so I've got 1 times tan theta divided by 1, and this is just tan theta. So guided practice. So we have 2a, simplify tan squared theta cosecant squared minus 1 divided by secant squared theta. So we're looking at what we can replace. Now we know that tan is equal to sine over cosine. So tan squared theta is going to be equal to sine squared theta over cosine squared theta. So we can replace these. So sine squared theta over cosine squared theta. Now I've got here cosecant, so we know that cosecant squared theta is 1 over sine squared theta. So I'm going to multiply that by 1 over sine squared theta. And I'm going to put it all in brackets. I'm going to leave my minus 1 outside. And this is all divided by. Now, secant is 1 over cosine. So that's going to be 1 over cosine squared theta. Now let's see what we can cancel. So on the numerator, the signs will cancel. And I have 1 over cosine squared minus 1 divided by 1 over cosine squared theta. Now I can multiply everything by cosine squared theta. And if I do that, these here will cancel and these here will cancel. So I'm actually left with, we've got 1. So 1 minus 1 times cosine is cosine squared theta divided by 1. So 1 minus cosine, we can replace 1 minus cosine squared theta with sine theta. So this is going to be equal to sine squared theta. So the next one we have 2b. And this says simplify. This time you have secant theta divided by sine theta. And we have 1 minus cosine squared theta. So let's have a look. We want to try and keep any sines and cosines. But we have a 1 minus cosine. So we know that a 1 minus cosine squared theta is equal to sine squared theta. So we're going to replace. We can replace this. So we have sec. Let's do this one first. So this is going to be sine squared theta. Now sec theta, it's not squared, but sec theta is 1 divided by cosine theta. So I'm going to change this to 1 over cosine theta. And then I have divided by sine theta. So that is divided by sine theta. So we'll keep that the same. So just going to rewrite this a second. So on the top we have 1 times sine squared theta. So we have sine squared theta divided by cosine theta. And that's divided by sine. So if we divide them by sine, this is going to be the same as rewriting it. So let's rewrite it first. So sine squared theta over cosine theta. This is like saying divided by sine, which if it becomes a multiply, we would be multiplying by 1 over sine theta. And if we do that, one of these signs will simplify. So now we're left with 1 times sine theta. So we have sine theta divided by cosine theta. And we know that we can replace sine theta over cosine theta. That is equal to tangent theta. That's equal to tangent theta. So this is equal to tangent theta, which is our answer. Okay, so question 3. We need to rewrite cotangent squared theta minus tan squared theta in terms of sine theta. So I'm just going to rewrite the question. So we have cotangent squared theta minus tan squared theta. So we can replace cotangent squared theta with cosecant squared theta minus 1. So if we do that, we'll have cosecant, I'm going to put that in brackets. And then we've got minus tan squared. Now we know we can replace minus tan squared theta with secant squared theta minus 1. So I'm going to do this with minus. I'm going to put this in brackets. So I'm going to minus. And then I'm going to put secant squared theta minus 1. And I'm going to multiply out my brackets. So I've got cosecant squared theta minus 1 minus secant squared theta plus 1. And now because I've done this, my minus 1 and my plus 1 will actually simplify. Now I know that cosecant is reciprocal, so I haven't got the minus 1 anymore. So this is going to be 1 over sine squared theta. So I'm going to rewrite that. And this is minus, and sec squared theta is 1 over cosine squared theta. So we got 1 over cosine squared theta. Okay, because we have different denominators, so we need to, we can only subtract with the same denominator. So we're going to multiply both of them so to make them 1. So sine, so on the we're going to have sine squared theta multiplied by cosine squared theta, and then cosine squared theta multiplied 1, and this is going to be minus sine squared theta. So I've just I cross multiplied and put over the lowest common denominator to make the terms the same. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to look at replacing my cosine squared theta with 1 minus sine squared theta. So if I do that, this will be 1 minus sine squared theta minus sine squared theta, and sine squared theta and 1 minus sine squared theta. So I'm going to multiply. So 1 minus, so 1 minus sine squared theta minus sine squared theta. And then on the bottom, we've got sine squared theta times 1. It's going to be sine squared theta. And then we've got sine squared theta times minus sine squared theta. So that's going to be minus sine 4 theta. So let's have a look. We can simplify these terms because we've got a sine minus a sine. So that's going to be 1 minus 2 sine squared theta divided by sine squared theta minus sine 4 squared theta. Minus